This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Oh, well, come on along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals on this Monday, April 20th, 420. Welcome into 420, Todd.
Is it really?
It is 420. Somebody sent me a message this morning. Happy 420 day. I said, well, dang if it's not.
What's that mean, Jake?
Yep.
Should we ask the young guys what that means? No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, it's 420. I don't know what that means. It's April 20th. But, hey, we've got welcome in on the program. Hopefully, Eric Gordon joining us today on the show. So looking forward to that. Former Hoosier playing with the Houston Rockets and NBA. Of course, his dad joins us. They've got the EG10 Academy and all that going on. So they stay involved. A lot of guys stay involved after the game or in the game after they finish those plays. Looking forward to talking to them about that. How about the documentary on MJ, man, The Last Dance? And I finally got to see the scheme. But that MJ documentary, Todd, everybody's been waiting for that because this has to be the most watched thing on all of television in my mind.
I agree. I mean, it's got to probably even blow like Super Bowl numbers out of the water, just simply because ESPN's on almost every cable network, and they provided it last night free. Thank goodness it wasn't on like ESPN Plus or something. But yeah, no, it was awesome, and exactly what everybody kind of needed last night. A lot of people were looking forward to it. I know that. And
it's only the first two of like. Was it 10 episodes, yeah. I think. So we got 4 more weeks of this. So they're stretching it out. They're not doing the thing where you can binge, because I promise you, most people would just binge straight through that thing.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised they didn't make it an option to buy it early for like $19.99 or something, and you could watch all 10 episodes, because I think a lot of people would take advantage of that.
Golden content, baby. Content is gold right now, and they're stretching it out. But it was very interesting to see those first 2 episodes. Kind of cool. Anything jump out at you?
Not a lot, other than it just brought back a lot of memories. I mean, that was kind of in the heyday of my playing career in those early 90s, and that's when I was at IU. And I remember, I grew up going to Pacer games, and I was always a Pacers fan. So I didn't like the Bulls at all. So if you don't love Michael Jordan, you don't love basketball. And they were so good. Like, it was one of those things. It was like, kind of like watching Duke. Like, they were just so good. I watched them because I loved basketball, and Jordan's, in my opinion, the best player of all time. And so obviously I watched them all the time, but it wasn't like when they lost, I was that disappointed, because I was a Pacers fan. And Jerry Krause came out of that thing looking horrible and looking like an idiot. And as a Pacers fan, I mean, he did us a favor. He did the Pacers a favor by breaking that thing up.
I guarantee it. It was funny watching the early on Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. They're asking him, say, "Oh yeah, we saw him coming. We saw him coming." They were playing those playoff games against the Boston Celtics, and even though the Celtics won, Jordan was putting up, 63 point, the playoff record at Boston. It was nuts. It was like, going, wow.
Yeah, and I mean, when you get Larry Bird and Magic Johnson talking about you
and Bob Knight
in rare air, but and you're right, because Bob Knight is you can put him into one of those categories. I remember Bob Knight saying a lot of times, there are a lot of really, really good players. There are very few great players. And so he held that word out so that he could demonstrate when someone was better than him. I mean, Calvert was great. There's a lot of good players, and Calvert was great. And you hear Coach Knight, and then you hear Larry Bird and Magic Johnson talking about this guy is the best ever. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like he really was better than everyone else. And it's not even, I don't want to say it's not close because a lot of those guys were so good it was crazy. But I mean, he was just different. And I think, my kids never saw Michael Jordan play. And watching that stuff last night, I mean, my guys are my kids are basketball kids, and they're looking at it going, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know he was that good."
Ryan from Michigan texts into the show. You can do the same. Hit us up 812-269-6367. He said, Isaiah said something that was cool the other day. Over the last 35 years or so, Jordan and LeBron have allowed us to eat, all of us to eat. But there were guys before that. But there's always going to be that guy there. But Michael Jordan to me, and I was thinking about this last night. It depends on your generation. Of course, the people that are younger than us, I think they probably think LeBron is the greatest of all time. And I still see Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time just because of what he personally did. And I think he had a little less physical capabilities than LeBron, but yet he still did more with what he had, I think. I don't know. It's just, to me, he's just the greatest.
It's a very difficult thing to go generationally to compare because, one, you're playing against different players, playing against different people.
Different games. The game's not the same.
Totally different. The rules are even different for a lot of what they do. And when you look at it, LeBron, what he does in today's world, I mean, it is amazing. It's rare. We probably won't see another LeBron in our lifetimes. And if we do, it'll be when we're pretty old. But I think Jordan is one of those guys that it would not have mattered what era he was in. And right now he would love / hate LeBron because LeBron would make Michael Jordan even better. And who was the next best player in the NBA at that time? I mean, you go around and you look at it, and there wasn't a close second to Larry Bird, to Michael Jordan.
There are guys that are just great, and Michael Jordan is one of those, obviously. But so is LeBron, so is Larry Bird. But those guys would be great in any era. They're just great. They're great because they're great at what they do. They're great because whatever it is that they have inside of them that allows them to become what they become, that is not normal. And they would be great in any era, LeBron included. I mean, you look at Steph Curry, it's a shooter. I mean, nobody has shot the ball like he has ever. I mean, that's the evolution of the game. But I think it's because the guys that came before him pushed those guys to reach those heights.
And I thought the one, I don't even remember which guy it was last night, but the one guy who described Jordan as saying he's the best guy at his job, no matter what that job would be. Of anyone in the world that does their job, he does his job better than anyone else in the world does their job. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate because he really does. And he was just different. I mean, his he not only was a really just incredibly talented player. I mean, you can't just turn anybody into what he was, but he was just so smart. When you remember like a lot of the stuff that he did, I mean, he was just a smart basketball player. And he, you think of all the numbers that he put up. Think back to that one season when he only played half the season and started half those games and was only allowed to play 7 minutes a half. I mean, that kills your numbers when you're talking about a career, and he could have cared less. I mean, it was just,
how stupid was that?
Insane.
How about the one with 31 seconds left to win the game?
Well, I mean, you know what? I get it, and this tells you what a competitor he is. His deal was, if I'm on the court, I'm there to win, no matter what. And our team shows up, we're here to win.
Well, I couldn't believe they took him out. They demanded to take him out with 31 seconds.
Yeah, but think about it. I mean, them as the way that story should have been written from Jordan's perspective is they became the 8th seed. They played, Boston in the first round, and you saw he put up 49 in the first game and 63 in the second game. They still lost both games. Maybe Jerry Krause and Reinsdorf weren't that far off in saying, hey, if we win one game less and don't play him, then we get one of the top 7 picks in the entire draft. Maybe he wins the next year. You never know. I mean, I didn't fault them necessarily for that. I thought, if anything else, what you can't do? You can't unleash, a pit bull in that scenario and tell him not to eat the meat. I mean,
exactly.
They should have never let him play or let him play the whole game. Because you can't put him on the court and not expect him to try to win.
Exactly. But man, what a phenomenal time. I was really upset at myself that I didn't watch pro basketball more then, because even then, I mean, I watched it, of course, but not like I probably wished I would have, because I have this just like today. I'm not a fan of pro basketball, but maybe I'm like, man, these guys are just that good, and maybe I should give it another chance. I'm thinking, I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't have anything to watch right now, and I'm just reminiscing.
That's it. Believe me, that's it. Because, you look at it now, and back then, I mean, think about how physical it was. Think about what it was with Lane Beer and Parrish and those guys. I mean, knocking people to the floor. You do that in today's game, and you're ejected. I mean, you're out without even blinking.
But today's such a shooter's game. I mean, look at Eric Gordon, who's coming on with us. I mean, they take Westbrook and Harden out of a game, or they sit them in a game. He comes in, he knocks down 50.
Yeah,
Eric Gordon, it's like crazy.
And you see it nowadays. I mean, guys driving the lane nowadays, and they're looking for who they can kick it out to at the 3-point line. I mean, you didn't see Jordan kicking that ball out last night. I mean, when he drives in the lane, he was taking the contact and still finishing. And it's a different game than it was back then, for sure. But it's still incredible. The athletes are still unbelievable and incredible. It's just, some people only prefer NBA basketball to college, and I don't blame them for that. It's just not my preference.
Alan hit the text line, says, morning, guys. Todd, get your golfing in today. Rest of the week looking kind of iffy for you.
What's he talking about? According to my radar has got the next 3 days are going to be sunny and beautiful.
Really? There you go. Bloomington looking good. But thanks anyway for the text, Alan. Appreciate you up and at it. Listen to us. Tim on the text line, other than Bob Knight's return, what's your favorite story game? I guess this is probably meant for Eric later, but other than Bob Knight's return, what's your favorite story game from IU basketball team this past season? Mine is Trace Jackson Davis's 27-point, 13 rebound against Minnesota. I'm going to pose that to you because he didn't say who it was to, but so there you go.
Well, I doubt Eric got to watch all the games last year.
He was busy, actually.
Yeah, he was given his schedule, but
maybe that's to you.
I mean, the best storyline of a game. I don't even.
For me, the one is the one that wasn't. Well, they could have beat Purdue when Bob Knight returned. Oh well.
I don't really even have. I guess I'd have to think that one through a little bit.
There wasn't a lot there. I mean, to be honest with you, and it didn't get to finish, so we didn't get to see him change anything.
I was kind of hoping the breakout game was going to be the Notre Dame game for Armand Franklin, and that might have boosted his confidence level to the point of just having an unbelievable freshman year. But I mean, he just he struggled to shoot the ball throughout the year, and I think it hurt his playing time after that.
Seeing them beat Michigan State again, because that's always a challenge, and they were able to rise up and do that unbelievably. It just cracks me up that so many failures, but yet some successes are like weird. It just cracks me up how
the NFL is going to hold a virtual mock draft today. The actual NFL teams, is that a thing?
Mock draft, I think so. Yeah, I think a mock draft.
Well, I know like Mel Kiper and the ESPN guys and Fox guys do it all the time, but the NFL people don't.
I think this is basically for a practice run, I believe.
Oh, because everything's going to be virtual. I get it. They're not actually going to make selections. They're just
correct. Yeah, it's just since they're
not going to tip their hat as to who they're really taking. I got it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little slow this morning. It's a Monday.
Oh, it's all right. It's 420 day. It's everybody's going to be slow today apparently. But what'd you say? Allegedly. I like that. Allegedly. But allegedly, Eric Gordon's going to be with us. Talk about Eric Gordon, man. Another former superstar from Indiana. Only played 1 year here, and man, can you imagine him 3 years at Indiana?
Yeah, well,
he's one of those special players who they don't come along that often, man.
He is. And the interesting part, and I remember I had a friend that most of my friends growing up all went to North Central. I lived in that township. And when Eric Gordon was a freshman, one of my buddies called me and said, you got to come see this guy play. And so I watched him throughout his career. And then when he was a senior, I had watched him play. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is a rare thing that you don't say very often. But he didn't have a college basketball type game. He already had an NBA basketball type game. And I don't mean his body was necessarily big and physical enough, which he was bigger and physical than a lot of guards in high school. But his game fit better into the NBA than it did into college basketball. And so for one of the few guys I can say I don't think staying an extra year or two would have helped them, because I say that about almost everyone, he's not one of those guys. I think he did exactly what he should have done.
Yeah, we got hit to break time as we'll be welcoming in Eric Gordon when we come back. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals, and hopefully back with Eric Gordon right after this.
The world's gone to hell and we're all gonna miss it a lot. All the whiskey in Lynchburg, Tennessee just couldn't hit the spot.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals, here on this Monday, April 20th, 420 day. Hoping to get Eric Gordon on here. He hadn't answered the phone yet, so we'll keep trying for him, and maybe Kevin Brockway from CNHI is going to join us too. We'll looking forward to talking to Kevin. But yeah, talking more about that MJ Doc, man. I mean, the thing is, you got to see his competitiveness right off the bat. I mean, they showed some practice clips, and he's on veteran players. I mean, so it was, and then the story where he went when he was a rookie, went into that hotel room and all that stuff was going on, and you knew he was like, yeah, no, I'm out. He had a different mindset going where he was going, but that takes somebody different though too. I mean, I don't know what I'd have done if I'd have walked in there, the peer pressure and all that stuff that comes along with that. I wish I could say for sure that I would have done the same exact thing, but I can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in that scenario that, and that's how they start making bad decisions. They start letting other people, kind of dictate how they are going to live their life and things they're going to do. And obviously Jordan was ahead of the game and ahead of life from the standpoint of he had goals and he knew how hard he wanted to work to get to those goals. And, that wasn't a part of it. And, you heard him say even at the time, I mean, he didn't even drink at the time because, he didn't want to put his body in a position where it wasn't optimal. And he's just a rare breed for sure. No question.
Yeah, and from all the stories that you listen to about the Celtics and Larry Bird and all those guys and Parrish and McHale, they weren't on the same training regiment that Michael Jordan was on, I don't think.
No.
Because they're like the old Mickey Mantle types. We're talking about going out and knocking down beers afterwards and all that stuff, the old school style. But that was kind of going out, I think, at that time. That was kind of like the last run of that style. And it just changed. You had to start becoming – because the athletes were getting so much better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you look in the early 90s at the athletes then compared to in the 80s. And, like look at Bird, for example. I mean, that guy probably hardly ever lifted a weight. And I don't mean that negatively. To me, he's one of the top 3 best players of all time. But – it just wasn't as important to have a big, strong physique. And in today's world, I mean, look at the guys on today's team. You got guys playing in the G League that physically would just have dominated back in the 80s. And it's amazing at how that has developed and evolved into what the athletes are today.
We've got Kevin Brockway from CNH Paper on. We're hoping to get Eric Gordon on. He's not with us yet, but we've got Kevin on instead. Kevin, how you doing, brother?
Good morning.
You're no Eric Gordon, but you'll do in a pinch, right?
Yeah, no. Hey, I appreciate it. It's that's a tough billing to live up to for sure. But I heard you guys talking a little bit about the Jordan documentary last night about The Last Dance, and I watched both episodes, and I was certainly enthralled, having grown up in that era as well, in terms of just some of the stories. And how about some of the Scottie Pippen stuff too, about his salary and feeling underappreciated as well? I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize how we were just talking about that earlier. I didn't realize how undervalued he was, but also he signed a contract. So it wasn't like they screwed him. But yeah, he was undervalued, and I didn't realize the animosity that was going on there with all that. And more importantly, Todd talked about, they could have continued this thing, man. They could have gone on. Hell, they could have won. Who knows? And if he hadn't taken that one summer off, they probably definitely would have won 7, and who knows, 8, 9 maybe.
Could you imagine 22 years later, someone talking to a GM the way they talked to Jerry Krause? That was interesting too. Just how they ragged the guy constantly, and you saw the clips on the bus and stuff. I couldn't see a Pacers player doing that to Kevin Pritchard today.
I wouldn't ride the bus if I was him. Todd?
First of all, you're exactly right with that. I mean, that situation was. I think the thing that gets overlooked, because you look at it and Jerry Krause just looks like a dick in that whole thing. And you're like, they had a specific plan that they were going to do. Now, the plan is stupid and the plan was idiotic and should have never been in place. But Reinsdorf and Jerry Krause had a plan and they were going to break that team up. Therefore, from their standpoint, there was absolutely no need to renegotiate that contract. And if you look at what they were trying to accomplish, they accomplished exactly what they wanted to. They still won the championship that last 6th year, and they didn't have to pay him more money, and it did blow up after that. And that is what they intended on doing. Now, like I said earlier, none of them, I think, factored in. I mean, no one won championships at 36, 37, 38 years old at that time. Now, they're dealing with one of the most rare human beings of all time in Michael Jordan. And so they were silly for doubting him and thinking he wasn't going to be able to do what they didn't allow him to do. And in hindsight, 2020, after it, I think that they would look at it and say, they should have given him they should have given them as many more years chances as they wanted.
Yeah, I just didn't understand how going into it they made that decision. I mean, usually you do that after
you know
the
what?
fact.
When you get a 5'7" guy, and I don't mean this to be a complete jerk about him, because I get what he was trying to accomplish. He was just wrong. I mean, he just made the wrong call. But I think he thought he was Bill Belichick. You know, he thought he was seeing into the future of how to develop teams and how to put this thing together. I mean, he was a fantasy football draft guy before fantasy football was, or you know what I mean? Like he wanted to create a team that he created. You know, when Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and then all those guys ended up taking the limelight away from him, you know, it crushed his soul for somebody to say, well, you know, yeah, he's won 5 championships at the Bulls, but that's because he's got Michael Jordan. I mean, that's soul crushing to a guy like that. I mean, he wants some credit for it, and he should have gotten some credit for it. But he also should have realized he can't score any baskets and he can't get any rebounds and he can't play any defense. So, you know, as a great general manager, he should have been able to step back and say, hey, look, all the credit goes to the players, and the players should have turned around and said, hey, some of the credit goes to the front office and all that. But, you know, it became childish at that point on both sides.
Well, we've seen as they've opened that last season up how it affected them. I mean, they were losing and losing
right.
and losing, and we saw that. And I guess he started to get some of it late. Then the damage was done for him.
I do think front office types nowadays are probably more revered than they were in the 1990s too. I think that factored into it. Like I just think that you know, maybe as the media has evolved and understood their importance. Whereas in the 1990s, they were still kind of viewed as behind the scenes guys. You don't have those, you know, you didn't have those star front office types back then, very rarely, that you do now. So I think that played into it too. I think Jerry Krause wasn't dealing from a position of strength at all.
And I just don't see how you get rid of a coach in advance again that has had the success.
You know,
I mean, my God.
That's where you know that they had a plan, and they thought they had this master plan that was everyone was going to think it was dumb, and then they were going to prove how it really was going to work. And obviously they didn't. But when you just look at that scenario, I mean, the Phil Jackson side of it is where you know for a fact they were planning on breaking the whole thing up. It did not matter who did what. Now, I think Scottie Pippen, I thought he was great. It was his fault he signed that contract. It was no one's fault other than him that he signed
because
that contract.
Was it that his manager that was on there saying that I told him that not to sign this one? That was
everyone told him not to sign it. His agent, the Bulls were even telling him not to sign it. And so the way he reacted to it at the end, I don't have respect for him from that standpoint. Now, I respect him as a player hugely and all that.
But it seemed like the teammates, including Michael Jordan, all feel the same way. They say, hey, man, you screwed up. I understand.
You signed it,
but you screwed up how you went about it.
And when he signed that contract, this is what a lot of people forget. And like I said, this was in my heyday of playing and watching basketball. It wasn't until 1993 when Chris Webber came out that contracts went insane. I mean, they all of a sudden got the money didn't just double. It like quadrupled in one overnight. And he signed that contract in 1991. And in 1993, when Chris Webber came out, everything changed at that point. So the timing was terrible for him. If he would have done what the average player was doing at that time and signed a 3 or 4 year deal, he would have hit the jackpot. I mean, in 1995 or 6, right in the middle of everything, he would have signed a $150 million contract. But it was his own fault that he signed that early contract. And that's where I'm like, no, I don't feel sorry for him for that. And in today's world, the organization would have come back in and renegotiated with him probably and given him extra money at the end. But those guys, it didn't fit those guys' plan. Their plan was to break that team up anyway. So they didn't need to do that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that.
It's interesting. It's fascinating. I mean, one more point that's kind of interesting too is that 99 was the strike year, so maybe a veteran team. I think the Spurs won it that year, right, with Tim Duncan and David Robinson against the Knicks. But maybe a veteran team could have withstood that and gotten a 4th championship like the Bulls because they would have had that break for the strike.
Good point.
Yeah, Reinsdorf said, I told him when he was getting ready to sign this deal that halfway through it, you're going to think you're underpaid, especially since we front-loaded it. Reinsdorf, that's from Reinsdorf.
Right.
I mean, when you got the owner saying, dude, that's exactly what happened.
It is. It's exact. I mean, he got good advice. He just didn't take it. And then, I've always loved Scottie Pippen. I've always, as a player, I have always really, really liked him. But off the court, he made a lot of decisions that were questionable. And we all hear the stories about Sean Kemp and how many people he's paying child support to and how many kids he's got out there. Well, Scottie Pippen's not a lot far behind that. And so he put himself in a really, really tough position with a lot of what was going on. And at the end of the day, he took it out on the management. And I don't think I think he thought the team should back him up.
Yeah, you'll never hear from me.
What's that?
I'm sorry, you cut out, so I thought you were done. But his answer was, you'll never hear from me. I told him I didn't believe it, but he promised that would be the case. Reinsdorf said, I know he's underpaid. Sometimes I make good deals, and sometimes I make bad deals.
Yeah.
He made a great deal.
Well, he made a great deal for what they were trying to accomplish. And I know I've said that 3 times already, but it's the truth. I mean, they didn't want that thing to continue. They wanted to blow the whole thing up. And Jordan had already walked away once, so he's proven he'd proven he was probably 3 years beyond what they expected out of him. So I think that they had a plan. The plan ended up being stupid and idiotic. If the plan had worked and they would have figured out a way to win 3 more championships after that, they would look like the biggest geniuses of all time. But instead, they look like a really bad management in a documentary 20-some years later.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin. I mean, it's just we were talking earlier, too. I mean, my gosh, I cannot wait to see the ratings for this thing. There's nothing else. No one is talking about anything except for this. It's like the new Tiger King.
Yeah, no question. No, it's it will pick up, and you would hope it would get better. And I think what it does too is it opens up the eyes to a new generation of fans of Jordan's greatness as well, like the 63-point game against the Celtics in the playoffs and so forth. And of course, you're going to have the great LeBron Jordan debates that people love to have. But this kind of reopens and stimulates that in terms of just how great of a player he was. And I've always argued that what separates Jordan from LeBron is kind of that clutch gene, that ability to make big shots at the end of games, which I never thought LeBron really consistently showed. But LeBron, you could make an argument, is the greatest athlete who's ever played basketball, and certainly is a great facilitator as well.
Yeah, I think that Michael just did more with less around him, a little less around him than what was put around LeBron at times, but neither had great. Well, none of them were built like the Celtics and the Lakers of that era. And that's another thing. He dethroned both of those guys, both of those teams, those programs, those franchises when he was coming up, and they both saw it coming, which is kind of funny.
It was interesting to hear them talk last night, and I had forgotten all about this, but I did not understand this trade at the time. But when they traded for Bill Cartwright and got rid of Charles Oakley, I was like, this just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I could almost assure you, behind the scenes, Michael Jordan he was a Charles Oakley guy. They were buddies, but he knew he needed somebody that was about 4 inches taller than that, and he needed a true center. And to go get Bill Cartwright for Charles Oakley, you're just looking at that going, that just makes no sense. And it worked to a T.
Krause did enough of those things that probably kept him in there. But hey, we've got the Scheme. I finally watched the Scheme. I know it's been out for a couple of weeks. Todd,
you're late to the party, Jack.
I know. I know you've seen it, right, Kevin?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out.
All right. So if you can stick around when we come back, we're going to talk about the Scheme when we come back, because I just got to watch that finally, and we'll talk about that. But you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary coming to you from the Golf Plug of the Point Studios. We're back with more right after this, powered by Rivals. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable of our community and love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find Facebook or contact me and chat with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 756-2390.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com and get yourself set up there. Tons of content covering the Indiana Hoosiers. We're joined by Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Kevin, how you been? He was with us in the last segment, but we didn't talk about what you've been up to, man.
Oh, actually, it's last week, had a chance to catch up with Victor Oladipo a little bit. So that was a good story. And he talked a little bit about going to some of the IU games as well. And he thinks they kind of have a bright future there, liked what he saw from Archie and the team, and is just kind of trying to stay ready and using this time, I think, to kind of, extend his rehab a little bit, obviously with the torn knee tendon. And this week we've got a lot of draft football content coming up. We got the NFL draft on Thursday, right? And I don't know if any Hoosiers will be taking maybe Simon Stepaniak in the later rounds, but we'll see how that unfolds as well.
How's did he mention how the rehab is coming? I mean, he's pretty much there from what I know that 100% you don't know when that ever happens, but did he talk about how he felt, how it's come along?
Yeah, Victor, he kind of acknowledged that. He said basically like that. He said, could I say that I was 100% when I came back? No, but I'm getting there. And he says he's got a home gym, basically. He's turned his garage into a gym. So he's taking this time as, maybe time to heal and even get the tendon a little bit stronger and get a little sore. But I think anytime you're dealing with those kind of injuries, there's probably nothing that, replicates game action and cutting and, doing it at that level, at that intensity. So you do miss that for sure. So we'll see if the NBA comes back this season. I mean, I think that's obviously one of the huge question marks. I'm sure you were going to ask Eric about that. I've heard some things about, maybe them doing something in Disney and having the teams fill up the hotels, and you have a couple of courts there, and finishing out the season there. So I think we'll wait and see if and certainly the Pacers right now, they're the fifth seed in the Eastern Conference, and maybe with Victor and Malcolm Brogdon, who apparently is healthy now, they can maybe move up a little bit.
Todd, you know about coming back from injury and at that level, not in the NBA necessarily, but it doesn't matter at that level. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just having to play through all that stuff and then get back to that elite level. That in and of itself is a difficult chore.
Yeah, I mean, I think from Victor's standpoint, I mean, this probably was a benefit for him in that he did get to come back, and so he's got, I don't want to say 100% confidence in that he's going to be okay. I mean, he had a terrible injury. I mean, he had a very difficult injury, and one that you see a lot of guys. I mean, I think since we're talking back in the 90s, I remember when Dominique Wilkins tore his Achilles. And then when you come back, I mean, his whole game was based on his athletic ability. And then when he came back, you could just tell he wasn't the same. And I think a lot of players, yes, there's the physical aspect of it, which is the most important, but also a big part of it is how you feel, mentally. Are you 100%, for sure that you're not going to get injured again, or that you have rehabbed completely? And, it's one of those things. I think the time he got to come back and play, he probably proved to himself that, he's most likely there, but this extra time that he has to heal even more, I think he's going to come back and feel great, feel totally confident about everything. And this time off for him, no one would root for something like this to happen, but I don't think from a healing standpoint for Victor, I don't think this is a bad thing.
No, it's always great to have that extra time.
Yeah, for sure.
To do that. I mean, especially there's less pressure on now because you know when the season's coming back, so everyone's kind of in the same boat. So he can really continue to work on that. So you got to think that that's an advantage to him, and maybe an advantage to the Pacers. They'll sneak up on some people if they get to come back. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, this could go off. This could affect not just this season, but next season as well. And I kind of hope it does, to be honest with you. I hope that they figure out a way to be able to come back and play, in like a July, August, maybe even like a July, August, September, finals for the NBA, and then don't come back and start until Christmas Day. Like I've already heard them kind of talking about doing is next season, shortening not just this season, but going ahead and try to finish and have some semblance of a playoffs because, right, that timing wise, everyone is going to love to be able to have NBA basketball to watch coming off of quarantine. And it would be great for them to be able to do that late summer and then start next season. And instead of playing, an 82 game regular season schedule, end up playing like a 50 game regular season schedule. And I can for sure see in that as being a benefit for everyone involved, including the fans.
Kevin, I just got a chance to watch The Scheme over the weekend. It's been out for a couple of weeks now on HBO and involving the federal investigation into college basketball. And I just want to get your take. I just started because Todd had already seen it, but we hadn't really talked about it yet. But I watched the thing and I just started laughing because it was typical NCAA, which they had nothing to do with it. It was like the NCAA became the FBI all of a sudden, the incompetence. And at the end of the day, you see that they're the lead guy on this. To me, all I saw was a whole bunch of entrapment. That guy got we don't even know because they wouldn't tell, but the FBI and agent, he is in trouble for either stealing money, misappropriating funds, or something in that whole deal. So that was the biggest bunch of nothing to me. They did nothing, and I don't think anything's going to come out of it.
Yeah, the FBI came across as incompetent and borderline corrupt in that documentary. I thought just not knowing how the system worked. They were trying to bribe assistant coaches that didn't want to take bribes, right? It came across a little bit like a circus, I thought. And listen, I think and this probably started 20, 30 years ago, this situation. I think for the NCAA, it's so hard now to police amateurism because we're in a system now where agents, we're talent scouts. You're trying to get these kids when they're 14 and 15 years old, and you're doing it through cash. And how do you police that if you're the NCAA when an 18-year-old kid, when you have elite, basketball talent that's already bought and paid for when they're 14 and 15 years old?
Yeah, and then you've got we listened to the wiretaps involving Will Wade from LSU, and nothing happens to this guy. He's not only is nothing happened to him, he's continuing to get recruits, as Shaquille O'Neal's son just transferred to LSU.
It is. It's nuts, I think, in a way, Jim. But I think that a lot of times with a lot of these schools, from people that I've talked to in athletic administration, there's a certain fear in wrongful termination. There are lawsuits that get involved with it. So unless the NCAA violations go down, and the onus is on the NCAA now to prove it, you would think that there's, beyond a reasonable doubt that Will Wade cheated. But, you have to go through this whole process. You have to go through the investigation. Now that's getting stalled through this situation, the coronavirus. So until that point, if you fire someone, they can sue back for wrongful termination. And I think that's where, like, the schools are now with regards to it. They just can't act yet. But you would hope that if the investigation bears fruit, that eventually Will Wade will, be let go. But, hey, this is LSU. It's the South, too. So it's a little different.
And, Todd, the funny thing is, all the stuff that they quote unquote expose, which to me they didn't really expose anything because the FBI was really pushing almost everything they did. But this is stuff that's been going on forever. It's like the FBI just has no clue. They've been paying players for 1,000 years, and this is nothing new that's come along, and they've done nothing but throw a big wrench into everything, in my opinion.
There was really from my view, there was two different stories. I mean, there was one story about Christian Dawkins and that stuff. And really, I mean, you mentioned entrapment, and that's really the word that kind of comes to mind when you look at the relationship with the FBI and all that. The other story was it wasn't the FBI talking to Will Wade on the phone. I didn't think Sean Miller hurt himself nearly as bad as Will Wade. I mean, Will Wade, I mean, when you got a guy that's coming out saying I've paid a lot more, or a lot less for better guys than this, I mean, what else can that mean? That there's nothing else that can mean. Like and that's not the FBI setting him up. I mean, that's coming out of his mouth. So, it was really two different stories I thought going on. One could have been like from the agent perspective of them, doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing with athletes. The other side was coaches paying players they're not supposed to be playing, and that being an NCAA rule. I think we talked about it last week a little bit. I think the signing of the Jalen Green guy, the NBA and the NCAA have always had a pretty symbiotic relationship, or not always, but they've really worked together for the most part, even though they don't really have that big of a relationship. They've really kind of worked, and it's been to the NBA's advantage because the NBA has basically been able to, once these guys become eligible to go to the NBA, then they can start making money off their marketing of themselves, which only helps the NBA. And I think now the NBA is also kind of seeing, hey, we can do this with some younger guys, and we can move it back a year, and the NCAA is not budging off of that. So I think that relationship is not going to be, obviously with them signing guys to a G League contract right out of high school, they're basically saying, hey, look, get with the times, NCAA, or we're going to move right past you. And I'm scared for college basketball and where it could end up going, because I think the NCAA might not be able to get out of its own way.
That's been the case. Mark Emmert, I don't understand how he is still in this position, because he's a dinosaur, and we've already seen him be stoned. No, not going to happen on my watch, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're already heading that direction. So to me, you cannot have a guy at the head that has already staunchly come out opposed to exactly what they have to do, because that's not who I want putting something in action. And so I think that they need to move in a completely different direction. And I don't know that that's going to happen. But
game image like this reportedly is coming. I mean, that could certainly help if that comes through in some form where you could start to have college athletes profit off that. Now, to what extent? It sounds like the NCAA wants to regulate it. I think that, autograph shows, to me, that's fascinating. Like, say, what if IU could set up autograph shows for these kids? You'd have, the boosters in the state that would pay a ton of money for autographs of these kids, and that could be a recruiting advantage. And I think that's what the NCAA is trying to sort out.
It is, and I agree, because there has to be regulation, because I've talked about this 1,000 times. If you allow, once this is allowed, and I get it, but how are you going to stop schools like from Kansas, who has a $1 billion deal with Adidas, from just putting into a quote unquote contract for the players that sign? Hey, when you come here, you automatically get an extra $20,000 a year from their autograph sessions. Well, a kid at BFU is not going to get that. And so that's a complete recruiting advantage. I don't know how they're going to get around that.
I don't think that they are going to get around it. I think but that's kind of factual in the way it is. Anyway, I mean, it's like the Yankees have the highest payroll. I mean, no, it's not fair to the smaller market teams, but it's just the way it is. And it kind of ends up being the same thing with the bigger market college teams, and I don't mean geographically, I mean by blue blood status, and that's just kind of the way it is. I do think they have to regulate it. You can't let these guys come in and let Kansas or Kentucky start paying freshmen $1 million a year. I mean, you can't, they can't allow that. But I also I don't think that that's what it's going to get to. I think that I don't think that's what it would have to get to in order to kind of regulate a little bit more. And if they give them the ability to pay players, then I think they could be much more strict on, if you break that rule, big time sanctions and big time stuff coming in. But as it is right now, I know everyone says the amateurism and the getting paid for your likeness and all that is coming, but I don't know that it's at the level of it's going to matter. It's going to be a big enough deal right now to make a good change that players are going to choose that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, Kevin, they're afraid that that's going to happen after the deal, the $500,000 deal signed earlier. They're afraid that that's going to happen. And I agree with Todd. I don't see that.
I still think the school brands, though, I think that carries a lot of weight, Todd, in terms of I think you could have, the top 10, the top 15, top 20 players go from the G League, and let's be honest, or go overseas. Those kids are never heard from again. And people, they still love the school. They still love watching IU's players. And the talent drop-off, I don't think is that significant. I think there are just a ton of good players out there. And you see players develop. I mean, Obi Toppin is Exhibit A, a kid, I remember at Texas A&M, Robert Williams, a 2-star, came from nowhere, turned out to be this great athletic freak in the SEC. You see guys like that emerge, and there's something to be said for that. So I don't know if college basketball, if it would be as dire as you think with regards to that situation.
Go ahead.
As long as the NBA doesn't try to step in, I agree with you. But if the NBA, like take for example right now, really what they're doing with this G League team and Jalen Green and Isaiah Todd and those guys is they're creating like a really, really good AAU team that's just going to go play some exhibition games and take a full year and just work out as opposed to going to school. And they're going to be trained from an NBA perspective and all that. If the NBA decided, hey, you get a guy like Mark Cuban, for example, who we all know thinks, light years ahead of everyone else when it comes to athletics. You get a guy like him that throws money behind organizing a really, really good AAU league where you're not just taking maybe the top 8 or 10 or 12 players, where you're trying to take the top 100 players and develop 10 teams of 10 players and put a league on of that. I could see that really hurting the NCAA when it comes to that standpoint. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet, but to say that that's not a possibility 10 years down the road, if the NCAA doesn't loosen up where they're at right now, I think it becomes much more of a possibility.
Hey, quick little note of irony last night. I noticed, and someone else pointed out on Twitter too, but 2 of the 5 starting Bulls there, they played on NAIA schools. Scottie Pippen played for Central Arkansas and Dennis Rodman someplace in Oklahoma. I mean, those are guys that did not play for Duke or Kentucky or Kansas.
But they also said a key thing, and hey, there'll be a lot of NAIA players that are able to do that if they grow 5 inches after their freshman year, and they grow 7 more inches after their senior year of high school. If a lot of guys do that, there'll be a lot more guys come from the NAIA, believe me.
I mean, it was just weird. The two of one of the most dominant teams of all time ever came from those ranks. It just shows the development, just not always there, man, until later.
Totally agree. And a 7-inch growth spurt at the age of 19 doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Obviously, you didn't get that. That's a different. There's a lot of guys that probably would be playing if they could get that 6-inch growth spurt.
Well, I can assure you right now, Michael Jordan would have been a really, really good player, not a great player, and not in the realm of what he's talked about right now if he was 5'11". And so there's just certain things that happen with guys that, you can't work out extra and get taller. It's God gives you that great ability and that great characteristic, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's a lot of players. I mean, I coached AAU for a long time with all my kids, and there's a lot of players that instead of them being 5'10" or 6 foot, if they were 6'6" or 6'8", we'd be talking about them in the top 10 rankings in the country, but it's just not the case, and it's just not in the cards.
Kevin, thanks a lot for joining us. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Make sure you give him a follow. Go follow up. He's got a great piece out on KCT Garden. You can stick around one more segment if you want. We can talk about that. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. We're back with more right after this.
Thinking that all is said in confidence.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com, get signed up for complete coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers. We're joined now by Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Kevin, joining us. You've been following up on the football program. I know that we had a conference call with Nick Sheridan. You spoke with Kane Womack, and I think you've got a piece on Casey Teagarden coming out, the new special teams coordinator for IU.
Yeah, and listen, Jim, we know the importance of special teams with this team. I mean, it could have resulted in 2 or 3 more wins, including the bowl game and the Gator Bowl, certainly with the situation with the onside kick. Wap Villier fumbling a punt against Penn State, right?
Trust me, you're telling us something we don't already know, boy, man. That was painful watching that last year.
Yeah, and yet that team still won 8 games, but it just shows you the value of special teams, where if you're a little crisper, you might have picked up, another couple of wins on the season. So I think he's interesting because, he takes over for William Inch. He went with Kalen DeBoer for Fresno State. His vision and what he's expecting is going to be a big opportunity for him to kind of, gather and try to improve on what was really kind of an up and down year. And Logan Justice certainly had a strong year kicking, particularly early in the season, but kind of faltered late. You got a new kicker in Charles Campbell coming in. You get Hayden Whitehead back. But I asked about the punt return situation, and he says it's going to be an open competition. But you've got kind of Wap and Reese Taylor back there, and if and when practices resume, those two will be battling it out.
Yeah, Wap Villiers is a great athlete, and he's such a huge asset to that team. I think that as a punt returner, he's a detriment, though, because he just does not have the natural knack of knowing when and when not to catch the punt. There are just certain fundamental punt receiving rules, and he broke a couple of those last year, and every time he did, it put Indiana in a bad position. Michigan State was an example. But yeah, they've got so much talent, and that's always great. When you have the talent, you can make the adjustments, and I think that they'll do just that. I mean, special teams, Todd, to me, it's in basketball, there's, you got different – to me, it's like free throws. You've got – free throws are one of those added things, just like special teams, kick extra points. It's one of those added things. You just have to do right, those little things to make – for everything to win.
Yeah, great analogy, and that truly is what it is. And teams that have – that are have great special teams that not just don't make mistakes, but actually, put you in a really good position, make plays to help you win. Those are almost always the teams that that succeed and have a ton of success. And the difference in winning games against Michigan, Ohio State, the really good games that Indiana needs to win, Penn State, the games that are going to separate this season of this team being better than teams in past, those games have got to be won. You've got to function on all cylinders, and that includes special teams, and they've got to make some big plays. And it just always seems to be the well-coached teams and the teams that have year in, year out success always have good special teams.
Yeah, from covering the Urban Meyer era at Florida, always had great special teams, return guys, block punts. They always did those things. And Meyer was a guy, when he was at Florida, really put a premium on it. And I think Dan Mullen is doing the same now at Florida as well. But it's really an important phase of the game. And like you said, Todd, not just necessarily, doing all the right things, but making those momentum-changing plays.
Yeah, and that's the difference between Indiana's trying to be one of those teams in the quote unquote the big four on the east side of the ledger of the division. And this to me, it's an opportunity. You've got a Michigan State, the team that's in kind of flux right now, a new coach coming in. They didn't have a great season. Indiana should have beat them last year, but this is a chance for Indiana to move up into that next level for them to actively compete with these big four.
No question, Jim. And I think that, you're seeing the young talent is there, and it's starting to mature a little bit, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And I think, the whole key will be keeping Michael Penix healthy, because you don't have Peyton Ramsey as a safety net this year. You've really got to make sure that and he has to make sure, too, we know he likes to run, but maybe absorbing contact a different way. Maybe the muscle that he's put on the 15 pounds will help. But I think that's kind of a huge key to the season.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot lose. You're nail on the head there. They can't lose him now. I mean, last year they had a great insurance policy. It was almost, I don't want to say of no consequence, because that's not true, because he wouldn't be the starter if that wasn't the case. But it was not much of a drop off for them. They will not have that luxury this year, and for him going forward, you can't. You've got to be able to rely on your guy to have a season, because you can't continue to fill in. So they've got to have a full season of him if they're going to become what they're trying to become.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Michael Penix and you think we're right now, because he's coming off of a year he got injured. We look at it from the standpoint of, okay, he's got to have we got to keep him healthy. But you don't really look at that. Take basketball for an example. You don't look at this season. No one's going into it going, hey, as long as Trace Jackson Davis doesn't get hurt, Indiana has a good chance at being pretty good. You don't think about that because he didn't really have major injuries throughout the season. And Michael Penix has got to have, for his own value and stock, to go on and be a top quality quarterback in not just the NCAA, but go on to the NBA or NFL. He's got to show that he's not injury prone. And guys who get hurt every year, you see it. We're getting ready to watch the draft later this week. I mean, they just don't get drafted very high. Tua would be the number one overall pick, probably even over Joe Burrow, if he wasn't kind of injury prone. And maybe not. That might be maybe 1 and 2, but he wouldn't be listed as the second or third or fourth quarterback taken, I don't think, if it weren't for the injury bug with him.
Yeah, I agree. Michael Penix, I think that this is an advantage for him, Kevin. I mean, he got this extra time and getting him healthier in the weights, putting him without the contact. This has got to be benefiting him in that regard.
Yeah, you hope that he has those kind of strength and conditioning facilities that you need. I think he said he had dumbbells and so forth, and you could probably do some push-ups and pull-ups and things to keep that weight on creatively. But certainly when he comes back, and if things get back to somewhat normal, he'll get back in with Aaron Wellman, the new strength coach. And I think this week, actually, the NCAA announced that they're going to be allowed to do 8 hours of activity time on Zoom. So maybe you'll have workouts that are probably a little more structured than they have been. But I'm sure that Michael do his best to kind of keep that weight and that strength on. He says he has.
Something I watched on different changing subjects here on YouTube as I get on there to start watching stuff, and something that popped up, Todd, was I think it was 2013. I may not have the year right, but they did this special. ESPN did this, and it was when Texas Tech was adding a walk-on, and they made it a competition, a made-for-TV kind of competition.
Right.
And Chris Beard was one of the assistants back then, and I'm like, holy, because he was there for like 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm like, holy smokes, what an education that dude got. But it was funny watching that scenario take place.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys. He is an up-and-coming coach. Like, there are a lot of guys who are kind of flash-in-the-pan type guys, and he's not one of those. I mean, he's a guy that I probably see him being someone that steps in. Let's just say, for example, let's play what if it happened, and what if John Calipari left and wasn't at Kentucky anymore. I could see a guy like Chris Beard being the next guy to come into a big-time blue blood program and take over it. He'll leave Texas Tech eventually. Somebody will pay him and get him out of there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's grown up. He's grown up the right way and learned from some of the. He was with Coach Knight's group for a while. I mean, he's learned it the right way.
It was funny watching that, Kevin, made-for-TV competition for a walk-on down at Texas Tech. Stu Robinson or Stu that was an assistant with him?
Yeah.
Stu was on that staff as well, Pat Knight on that staff. Not a bad staff. I mean,
I bet they had parties for that staff were awesome. I can assure you. I got to hang with Stu quite a bit. Stu's a riot. He's a lot of fun, and obviously, we all know Pat Knight is one of my buddies and just as much fun as you could ever imagine.
What is Stu doing these days, I wonder?
I don't know.
We got to get him on. We got to get access to Stu to get him on.
Stu's got some stories, boy, let me tell you.
Well, then we definitely got to get him on. But, yeah, Kevin, I mean, that's something you weren't around on the Indiana beat back then, of course, and Knight left and moved on. But it was weird just watching that, because that entire staff, with the exception of Chris Beard, was all IU people. And there was was it Steve Downing that went with him? Someone went with him too. I forget.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just fun watching that, and then watching Bob Knight do that stuff on TV. And
wasn't Mike Roberts down there with him too?
I did not. I don't think Mike Roberts.
Sure, Mike Roberts went with him to Texas Tech too.
Wouldn't surprise me, because that was right. Now, wasn't he in school at that time?
I don't remember.
Seems like it, but yeah, it was just funny watching that, man, and watching them have their meetings in between, talking about guys. But it was funny. Knight could be funny. I mean, I guess it's because he's an intelligent person, but
he thought he was funny. He thought he was funny. I can assure you of that.
I'm sure he thought he was a lot funnier than he actually was.
He did a lot of things that he thought were hilarious that we didn't necessarily think were that funny.
Were you trained to laugh at it?
Oh my gosh, heck yeah. We've all got some great fake laughs.
Kevin, what you got coming up next for the folks to read at CNHI Papers?
Yeah, just basically a lot of football this week. Also, our high school basketball series is concluding this week. I got a story on Luke Brown coming out. I got a chance to see him up in Blackford County. A lot of fun, watching him play. And he's got a lot of offers from some smaller schools, Ball State, Indiana State, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. But, he's a guy that, it's kind of interesting with the high school season being cut short where he is, but he'll enter a senior season within striking distance of Damon Bailey's record. So we'll see if he can make that run to over 3,000 career points.
Well, we talked about him this week, Kevin,
yeah.
Not too long, a few days ago, and with Todd. And I just. Todd, I think this is going to make it impossible for him to catch that record personally. But that aside, we were talking about him because there's so much. He's a weird deal in this state because there's so many people up there. His fans, they're kind of, I guess, beside themselves that he's not getting these big time offers because they see him as this second coming, and it's just not happening for him right now. But someone will probably eventually offer him, Todd, I think, because someone wants to be the guy that didn't make that mistake, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he is, the difference with him, I mean, they list him at 6'1", and I kind of said this the other day. I've never met him in person or seen him live. So I don't know if he's like a 5'10", 6'1", or like a solid 6'1", 6'2", and has potential to grow. And this is what I hate about, I don't hate anything about it. This is one of the parts of college basketball that in today's world I think sucks, is guys built like me and guys built like Luke Brown. They fight such an uphill battle to get scholarship offers, and the athlete he can look at it and say, I mean, this guy can probably shoot left-handed. He can probably shoot 90% from the free throw line left-handed, and he's just a incredibly skilled scorer and shooter. And it's shocking that a guy like that they can't find a place for him on more rosters, but. If he was 6'4", he'd probably be ranked in the top 25 in the country. And that's a sad statement to make, but it's factual and it's true. And,
I could tell you this, Todd, Billy Donovan recruited plenty of small guards in Florida, and he did just fine. There's something to be said for that. And a lot of those guys are undervalued, and you can, if you can shoot and pass and have that kind of quickness. And I saw plenty of them, Chris Chioza, Irving Walker et al. I mean, there were plenty of little guys that did pretty well, certainly at the college level.
Well, but a perfect example of exactly what Todd is saying. Last night on The Last Dance, you heard Michael Jordan. He got cut after his sophomore season, and then he grew. He went from 5'11" to 6'4" the next season. All of a sudden now he's on the team. Now all of a sudden he's a good player. Now all of a sudden he's this. Now he's going to be the greatest player of all time.
He
is.
Know what? One of the things that nobody talks about and how good Michael Jordan is, he's really good at growing, because he got cut from the team and went home and figured out a way to grow 5 inches. And if a lot of guys could do that, they'd make a lot more. There'd be a lot more Michael Jordans in the world.
He didn't even make the team, man. We're not talking about not playing. He got cut. The difference between getting cut and not getting cut was him growing. I mean,
you think the Jordan brand really could become the number one selling thing of all time? Have him tell us how he grew 5 inches, and then everybody will start wearing Air Jordan.
And the funny thing is, we listened to that Last Dance last night. They talked about Pippen and you talked about Dennis Rodman. Those guys did the same exact thing, both of them. They were like whatever they were, and then they grew 5 inches, grew 7 inches. Like, bam, it doesn't happen to anybody.
Who's the kid that plays for the Celtics that played at Butler?
Hayward?
Yeah, Gordon Hayward. He was the same way. He grew up as a 6 foot, a 5'11", 6 foot guard, and all of a sudden had over a 2-year period had like a 7 or 8 inch growth spurt and went from being 5'11" to 6'7". And you're like, okay, well, yeah, I can say he had guard skills, just exactly what they were talking about with Jordan. He had crazy guard skills, and all of a sudden you put it on a big guy, and that's the ideal scenario for. We all hope that happens. It just, for most of us, we end up growing our bellies out instead of our height.
The late growth spurt certainly helps. Yeah, no, there's no question. They keep those guard skills. I think Chandler Parsons at Florida was the same way. When he was in high school, he shot from like 6'3" to 6'9". And I remember Billy Donovan, when Chandler Parsons was a junior, was playing him at point guard because he had those skills and he had that ability, that vision in terms of passing and handling the ball.
Tim, let me make this. I want to hear Tim's text. But what level do you think Larry Bird would have been at if he was 6'1"? I mean, you want to?
We would not know who Larry Bird is.
We would not know who Larry Bird is. I agree with you, and I think Larry Bird is one of the best basketball players of all time. Probably one of my most fun players to watch because of his lack of athletic ability. And at 6'9", if that guy is 6'1", we've never heard of him.
It's like Magic Johnson. I mean, he doesn't start out as a 6'9" point guard. He started out as a point guard who became a 6'9" point guard.
Right? Yeah, totally. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying
because most 6'9" guys cannot handle the ball like he did and does. So yeah, it was crazy. You're exactly right. Tim hit the text line and says, "Do you think Lander should stay in high school and earn Mr. Basketball next year? All that he will miss out on by becoming the 2020 class." I do what he wants to do. I think he should do what he wants to do.
Here's what everyone tells you. Set your sights and your goals, and go try to achieve them. And his goal is to play in the NBA. I can tell you right now. I've never met him. I don't know him personally, but I can tell you his goal is to play in the NBA. And yes, Mr. Basketball is an unbelievable honor that very few people get to have. But if he gets to the NBA 1 year faster because he chooses to reclassify, it's a potential $10 to $15 million decision. So is Mr. Basketball worth $10 to $15 million? For people who have $150 million, maybe it's not worth it. For people that don't have $150 million, yes, it's not worth $10 to $15 million to stay for an extra year. So I think he's making the right decision by reclassifying.
And there's no guarantee he would win Mr. Basketball, Kevin.
True.
You've got Trey Kaufman, who won the Gatorade Player of the Year as a junior, which has only happened 5 times in the history of that award. So there's no guarantees.
I'll tell you who's rooting for Lander to reclassify, and that's Indiana basketball fans. I'll tell you what, if that kid comes here next year, I've only watched him a few times, but I think he immediately elevates the backcourt. I mean, I think he's a guy with that kind of speed with the basketball, his vision, his ability to score from that position. That's something that Indiana doesn't have right now. And that guy will make a difference. Mark my words.
I don't got that. Todd, you can speak to this. You've seen him play. You played in the backcourt at Indiana. I mean, this kid is – and I was just actually laughing, too, thinking of him. Could you imagine if Christian Lander grew 5 inches and became a 6'6" point guard?
Exactly.
That would be unstoppable.
That's a similar scenario to what you're – I mean, yeah, that sounds silly to say right now because he can't go work out more and become 7 inches taller. But, if it happened, yeah, it would be you wouldn't just be talking about, a player who's ranked 12th in the nation in his age group right now. Anyway, you'd be talking about the number 1 rated player in the country without any question. And so, but let's forget pie in the sky and say that doesn't happen. Yes, he will improve Indiana's team immediately the day he steps on campus. And I've told you for 2 years that I am a Rob Finney fan. I'm probably one of Rob Finney's biggest fans. And I think the stuff he's done at IU and I think he will benefit significantly from having Christian Lander there.
He's had no one to push him since he's been here.
and he can play. Having both of those guys on the floor at the same time is not a stupid statement, and not out of the realm of things that can happen in Indiana. You think about having those two guys defensively on the court together. That's not a bad thing to have.
Oh, I get excited thinking about it.
I'm with you. You talk about the pressure they could put on the ball and put on teams and speed teams up, getting up and down the court. Christian Lander will him reclassifying. It won't be. He won't look out of place. Just from my opinion, I think he'll step right in and be just fine. We won't know he reclassified.
If they can all play together,
I think on the other end of the floor too, it makes them a much steadier team. I mean, you're talking about a team that was among the last in the Big Ten in assist to turnover ratio. I think they immediately upgraded their ball handling ability too, and their ability to handle pressure.
Absolutely. They become a lot faster team. They also become a deeper team simply by opening up different options now. Now you got guys at the wings and the guys in the middle and Trace Jackson Davis. How much does that help Trace Jackson Davis?
It helps a bunch. Here's the thing. Indiana, the numbers tell this. I'm not like saying something everyone doesn't know. The numbers tell you Indiana struggled to score in half-court offense. They were much better when they got the ball up and down the floor and were able to shoot earlier in the shot clock. Whether it's a fast break or whether it's just getting an open shot because the defense isn't set yet, they were better when they played faster. Obviously, he's going to help from that standpoint. And truly, I know he's listed as a big guy, but Trace Jackson Davis can run the floor, and he benefits from early shots because he scored a lot of his points off offensive rebounds and putbacks and things like that. And those numbers will go up for him. And this team adding the guys they have coming in, we're talking about Christian Lander right now. They've also got, a couple guys coming in that we know can shoot the ball. I don't see us saying next year that this is a team that really struggles to make the outside shot like we did after, probably 70% of the games this season.
And not only that, Kevin, when you have better players, it opens up other avenues for other players that we talk about development. Someone like Jordan Geronimo. I mean, we talked earlier about NAIA guys, Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, who just became freak good athletes. Someone like Jordan Geronimo, who had he not played with someone like Christian Lander or not came, we don't know what he would have developed and don't know what he's going to develop like yet. But this may give him an opportunity to become a player that he would not have become under different circumstances. And I think those are the kind of guys that we've been talking about.
Yep, an athletic wing, someone that can run the floor, Geronimo, I think will greatly benefit as you continue to play up tempo. And it'll be interesting to see even in the half-court offense, too, Lander's quickness, how that has an impact, his ability to break down a defense. I mean, they may become a better half-court offensive team as well with him just because of his ability to, drive the lane and create a little.
Definitely something fun that we're looking forward to, but we got to wait to get back to that point. But I'm pretty confident we're going to get there. I mean, there's just no way we're not because people are complaining and protesting too much now about getting back. Can you imagine what's going to be like 4 months from now? So I can't imagine. But what is the situation going to be like? Are fans going to be able to go watch games this year? That's going to be the big question, man. Who knows? Right now, we're trying to be allowed to walk out of our houses right now. So who knows what it's going to be? And hey, let's just keep praying for a good outcome and try to do the right things. Because people for the most part, I think have kept a pretty good attitude about it. Now, if we can keep this up for another 2 months, I don't know, but we'll just have to keep trying. Absolutely. Kevin, I can't thank you for joining us, man. It was fun as always. I appreciate you. Make sure you give Kevin a follow with CNHI Papers. Follow him on Twitter. He's got a piece coming out on KCT Garden and special teams and the relationship between Nick Sheridan and Kane Womack, the coordinators for Indiana football. But thanks a lot, brother. We appreciate you as always. All right. Thank you, guys. You betcha. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Make sure you give him a follow joining us. We appreciate him. But fun conversations. I mean, there's lots of stuff to talk about because that's all there is to do is we talk about. I found myself, I actually watched yesterday an iRacing NASCAR event. I mean, and then there was an Indy one after that. But if you kind of are not paying exact attention, it almost looks the exact same. No way. I swear. Like if you're not just staring at it, because they're moving kind of, it was kind of funny. But But I mean, the wrecks aren't exactly the same when they wreck, but they're all taking it about as seriously. But yeah, they're all sitting in their cockpits at home, and
Really?
it was funny. Yeah, it was funny.
I chose to work on my 9-iron game yesterday instead of watching NASCAR.
Yeah, you made a smart move, I can tell you, because I accomplished nothing. Looking forward to coming back tomorrow, do it all again. Hope you guys are around to join us. We'll be back for more. For Jake and Todd Leary, thanks a lot to Kevin. I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.